They didn't come to conquer. They came to observe. And to them, we were tragic. To the Galactic Aletha Council of Minds, the spiral kin, the ebon cloud Earth, was a dying curiosity. To polluted oceans, fractured nations, creatures that fed on their own planet. It was only a matter of time before our species collapsed under the weight of its own hunger. So when they abducted Chef Dominic Reyes, they didn't do it out of fear. They did it out of pity. The ship was called the Variel, a diplomatic cruiser with living walls. It hovered like a pearl in the void, beautiful, sterile, and utterly devoid of flavor. The beings inside had names that couldn't be spoken, only translated: Chancellor of Clouds, Speaker through Water, and Observer's Seed. They communicated in scent and vibration, and they spoke of peace, order, and survival. They scanned Dominic's mind. They saw memories of war, famine, and extinction. But then they found something else. Recipes. Not files, not nutrition plans, but the human madness that was cuisine flavor balanced with heat, sour chased by sweet, the controlled chaos of umami swirling in 1,000 permutations. They didn't understand it, but they felt it, like a tremor in their psychic bones. Dominic didn't beg. He didn't scream. When they placed him in the sterile galley aboard their ship, nothing but nutrient paste and hydration tubes, then he asked for garlic. Everything changed. The air inside the alien lab smelled like metal and fear. The humans were locked in glass chambers, poked and scanned like lab rats. But in one corner, something strange happened. Jacob, a short-order cook from Earth, sat calmly on the floor. He had snuck a few ingredients into his jumpsuit before the abduction: a small tin of salt, a spice mix from his apron, and, most importantly, a sandwich. When the alien guards opened the chamber to collect more samples, Jacob didn't resist. He simply unwrapped the sandwich and took a bite. The scent hit them first. A warm, savory wave rolled through the corridor like smoke. Roasted meat, toasted bread, melted cheese primitive, yes. But something inside the alien brains lit up. A dormant part. Something ancient. One of the guards, a tall, insectoid creature with mandibles, staggered forward, sniffing like a dog. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "You hungry?" He held out the sandwich. The alien hesitated, then took it. A bite. And then the universe shifted. By the time the alien researcher team returned, 5 guards were sitting cross-legged, chewing slowly, their pupils dilated. Their weapons lay forgotten on the floor. The lead scientist Drillvec hissed in confusion. "What is this substance?" Jacob simply smirked. Lunch. In the next days, they tested Jacob's food like it was a weapon. Scanned it, probed it, dissected the sandwich down to the atoms. They missed the point. It wasn't about chemicals. It was about culture. Word spread. Quietly at first, across the ship, then between ships. An old communication relay beeped to life on the far edge of the sector. Subject 47B introduced. Class 12 flavor burst. Possible neurochemical alteration. Recommend culinary containment. Too late. Aliens who had never tasted before, who lived on nutrient paste and recycled protein, now obsessed over texture, smell, warmth. And Jacob, he just started cooking more. They brought him ingredients. Strange roots, meats that pulsed, fruits that shimmered with bioluminescence. Jacob didn't hesitate. He cooked with whatever they gave him. He roasted, fried, boiled, and baked. The aliens watched in silence, then tasted and cried. Some wept openly as centuries of culinary silence were shattered in a single bite. A towering lizard general screamed and dropped to his knees after one taste of Jacob's seared fungus steak. Is this joy? The galley was renamed. No longer a lab, it became a shrine of flavor. They took notes. They formed ranks. They bowed before the chef's flame. And Jacob, he sharpened his knives. You ain't seen nothing yet. High Command noticed. On the central planet of the Therexy Empire, an emergency meeting was called. Holograms flickered to life. Military leaders, scientists, and xenopsychologists argued across systems. Human cuisine is disrupting our hierarchy. Our soldiers refuse rations. There are rumors of cookbooks. Worse, there were whispers of rebellion, not with weapons, but with taste. Entire fleets slowed down to follow food signals. Elite guards traded secrets for recipes. Empires paused wars just to eat. And still, at the heart of it, was one man and his fire. Jacob, standing tall in a grease-stained apron, surrounded by aliens begging for seconds. They tried to contain it, censor broadcasts, destroy rogue food labs, but the movement grew. Other humans, once held as pets or test subjects, were now being pulled out of cages and into kitchens. A grandmother in Sector 9 taught aliens how to bake pies. A teenager from New Jersey introduced hot sauce to a species that had never known pain and pleasure together. A street vendor from Bangkok became a god in a mining colony. Food was now a weapon, a language, a revolution. Jacob was declared the first chef lord by a council of alien admirals who had once conquered galaxies, but now wore aprons. And he wasn't done. "Time to teach them dessert," he said, flipping a crepe. Captain Rylvac watched from the high balcony of the observation chamber, his breath caught in his throat. Below, dozens of officers' warriors bred for conquest were eating and crying. Human chef Marcus had just served what he casually called beef short ribs, slow braised in red wine reduction. The meat fell apart at a whisper of a fork. The sauce shimmered like liquid velvet, and these hardened alien warriors who once raised worlds now trembled with emotion. An admiral of the Croc's fleet leaned forward and whispered, "I would die for this flavor." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Please don't. I still have dessert." Gasps. One alien fainted. Behind the scenes, the Galactic Culinary Council, an ancient advisory body for nutritional regulation, was in a state of collapse. Their emergency meeting buzzed with frantic voices. The humans, they aren't using standard rations or nutrient blocks. They use fire, time, and emotion. How do you regulate emotion? They fed the Varnak ambassador a substance called cheesecake. He hasn't stopped smiling in 38 hours. You fear brain damage? Marcus, meanwhile, was plating his secret weapon, churros with spiced chocolate. The council didn't know it yet, but diplomacy across the galaxy had shifted. Embassies no longer sent legal teams, they sent chefs. Human culinary envoys traveled from planet to planet with rolling kitchens. Treaties were negotiated over feasts. Wars paused when cinnamon rolls were served. Conflicts settled over pancakes. Marcus was now called the flavor bringer. Wherever he walked, his apron flapped like a flag of peace. Entire star systems welcomed him with flower showers and silken banners that read, "He who feeds leads." But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the Akrill Nebula, the Purity Alliance, a group of traditionalist aliens, declared humans a flavor-based threat. They viewed seasoning as sedition, texture as treason. "We must stop the chefs," they growled, "before taste replaces power." Their first attempt was to infiltrate Marcus's kitchen with a flavorless assassin, a being who had never eaten and could not taste. Marcus simply handed him a grilled cheese sandwich. The assassin sat down, tears fell. He never reported back. Back on Earth, no one knew what was happening. The UN was baffled. "Wait," said one official, squinting at the alien broadcast. "Is that our chef Marcus? Why is he being crowned with a chef's hat the size of a car?" "He appears to be receiving the Intergalactic Order of Flavor," someone said. That's new. Meanwhile, food-focused religions were forming. Aliens began worshipping recipes. Temples were built around food trucks. One planet declared Fettuccine Fridays, a planetary holiday. Another replaced its flag with a photo of mashed potatoes. In one bizarre instance, a civilization restructured its language so that every word described flavor. Instead of saying hello, they now said buttery greetings. Marcus didn't ask for any of it. He just kept cooking. But now, galactic trade routes were rerouting around Earth. Other species wanted access to the source of flavor. Food tourists arrived by the millions. Alien influencers reviewed human street food with dramatic slow-motion bites. One whispered to her audience, "Human tacos are like biting into a dream wrapped in crunch." The Purity Alliance made one final attempt to destroy the human influence. They kidnapped Marcus. They took him to a sterile moon station, stripped of all smell, all warmth. No food, no fire, just cold metal and sharp questions. "What is your weapon?" they demanded. "How did you enslave the galaxy with flavor?" Marcus looked up calmly. You want to know my secret? They leaned in, he smiled. It's care and butter. Then, with a smuggled match and a stick of salted goodness he hid in his shoe, Marcus lit a small flame. The aroma of sizzling butter spread. The guards fell. Not in combat, but in hunger. One whispered, Is that onions? A door opened. Guard walked in. Then another. Within minutes, the captors became kitchen assistants. By hour 3, the moon station smelled like garlic bread and roasting chicken. By hour 6, the Purity Alliance surrendered and asked for the recipe. When Marcus returned, he didn't bring weapons or soldiers. He brought a cookbook. Earth was no longer seen as a minor planet. It was now the center of the flavor ring, a council of species who ruled by feeding others. Children were raised not just to read and write, but to cook. Human culinary schools received millions of alien applications. Kitchen stadiums were built in orbit. The Iron Chef Show became a diplomatic arena. One small child from Iowa made a soup so comforting that 2 rival empires stopped their 1,000-year war and opened a joint restaurant. Meanwhile, Marcus stood on the balcony of the Galactic Grand Kitchen, aprons stained with sauces from 100 worlds. He looked out over the millions gathered. He said, Are you hungry? The roar of applause shook moons. Marcus passed on his tools, not because he was done, but because others had learned. Humanity had done what no empire could. Unite the stars, not with power, but with pancakes. Even the old skeptics of the Purity Alliance opened restaurants. Their leader now wrote food poetry and wept openly over BR. The galaxy had changed. No longer were treaties written in cold ink, they were served on warm plates. No longer did fear bind civilizations, flavor did. And deep in a quiet kitchen, on a space station orbiting Jupiter, a new human chef flipped a grilled cheese sandwich and whispered to themselves, Let's see what dessert does to the Andromeda Confederacy. The stars watched in silence. They waited to be fed. The arena wasn't built for battle. It was a tasting hall, once sacred, only to diplomatic summits and peaceful cultural exchanges. Now, however, it resembled a war zone of sizzling pots, aromatic plumes of smoke, and elite security drones circling overhead. Humans stood at their makeshift kitchen stations, battered cooking pods salvaged from supply ships, flame grills cobbled from repurposed military gear, and spice drawers welded to mobile stoves. Across from them, alien chefs from a dozen powerful worlds arranged ingredients with trembling hands. This wasn't just another demonstration. This was the recipe war. The Grand Culinary Council had been split in two. One faction, loyal to the ancient styles, claimed human food was a dangerous addiction that unraveled the foundation of civilized culture. The other had become complete devotees, arguing that flavor like diplomacy evolved. Earth cuisine wasn't an invasion, it was revelation. To settle the growing divide, the council decreed a challenge: human chefs versus alien masters. The winner would decide the future of culinary law across 500 worlds. Chef Marcus took the lead. The others called him the Flame Walker, not because he was dramatic, but because the thermal plating in his boots once shorted out mid-grill, and he cooked 3 more dishes before noticing. His apprentice, May, only 16, was already whispered about in alien halls. They said she could taste every molecule before it hit the tongue. As the contest began, Marcus didn't panic. He didn't run. He simply looked up at the alien audience and asked, "Ever tried something that hugged your soul?" The aliens, some with 6 eyes and silicon mouths, blinked. He smiled. "Let's fix that." They began with bone broth. Not just any broth, but one slow-cooked for 48 hours. Using protein from alien creatures, they'd carefully reared in human spices that made even the air taste like memory. Each course followed a principle: comfort, heat, memory, risk, redemption. On the other side, the alien chefs performed perfect molecular deconstructions. Their food gleamed like sculptures, cold, elegant, lifeless, technically brilliant, emotionally hollow. By the 4th round, the air had changed, and a tentacled Korathi judge, known for a centuries-long palate training, dropped his tasting rod and openly sobbed into a bowl of Marcus's spicy, sweet earth curry. "I am experiencing childhood," he wept, "but I've never had one." May's dessert, a tiramisu variant, laced with mildly hallucinogenic. Fruit caused two ambassadors to sing harmonies in species previously thought to be mute. The council fell silent. And then they stood. The human chefs had won. Ash! But that wasn't the surprise. The surprise was the alien chefs who crossed the floor at a kneel not in defeat, but in a gesture of apprenticeship. They begged to learn because something inside them had cracked or awakened. And the galaxy, whether it was ready or not, had tasted Earth's secret weapon. Love served warm. Word traveled faster than any signal beacon. By the next cycle, Marcus, May, and the other chefs were whisked into orbit. Not by military force, but by luxury diplomatic vessels. The Grand Culinary Council issued an edict. Human food would now be mandatory curriculum for all star-class diplomatic academies. But that decision brought trouble. You see, food wasn't just food in galactic culture. Spice meant power. Texture meant tradition. Meals were rituals, rites, inheritances, and humans were rewriting everything. Whole planets began requesting Earth spices: saffron, cinnamon, garlic, vanilla. Some were smuggled like narcotics. Others were sold on black markets for the price of battleships. Spice pirates emerged, butchers of flavor, rogue traders offering fake Earth recipes to desperate aristocrats. It became a crusade. The chefs were no longer just cooks. They were ambassadors of influence, flying from world to world, teaching not just how to fry or simmer, but how to connect. How to taste pain and still find joy. How to gather around flame and story. But enemies grew. The Glax Syndicate, a brutal economic cartel, declared Earth spice as a cultural virus. They launched a campaign to shut down the human chefs, seize their supply chains, and burn every cookbook they found. Marcus was targeted. His ship, the Skillet Ark, was attacked mid-route to the snow world of Tarsi. But instead of retreating, he opened the emergency oven bay and released thousands of frozen cinnamon puffs into space. The Glax ships, unshielded, were overwhelmed by the smell. Their crew went into shock. One of them wept through the comms, whispering, "It smells like home." The human chefs were saved. But it was clear, this was no longer about food. It was war. Somewhere, deep in the quarantined zone of Sector 9, sat a forbidden planet, untouched, untasted. The planet was called Yurna, world of lush ecosystems and volatile biomes. But the galaxy knew it by another name, the garden that devours. For centuries, it was forbidden. Rumors said the plants there could create flavors that erased grief, or meat that granted visions. Marcus decided to go. The human culinary movement needed more than spice. It needed awe, and Yurna held it. With May, 3 elite chefs, and a squad of culinary archaeologists, Marcus descended into the heart of the jungle. They found it. A fruit called a pania, pulsing with soft blue light, hanging from a tree that sang. 1 bite brought tears. 2 bites brought collapse. Cooked right, laced thin, glazed in honey wine, and flash charred over volcanic stone, it created silence. Not metaphorical silence, real silence. Even the wind paused. The dish was brought back in cryostasis. When served to the Culinary Council, the lead judge fell to his knees. "Where did you find the taste of my dead wife's laugh?" he whispered. Marcus didn't answer. He just handed over the recipe and smiled. "You haven't tasted anything yet." The final transformation was not in battle, or diplomacy, or debate. It was in ritual. The galaxy declared the Feast of Flame and Root an annual event where all species, all worlds, all people would share one meal with someone not of their kind. Human chefs would lead it. Marcus lit the ceremonial grill at the center of the Great Unity Tableau platform orbiting above 5 suns. As thousands of ships arrived, carrying billions of beings, plates were passed, languages blurred, smiles replaced strategy. Even the Glax arrived, and sat down, not as enemies, but as guests. Marcus whispered to May as the first course began. "This isn't a revolution anymore," she nodded. "It's a reunion." The galaxy had always feared humans for their violence, their weapons, their history. But it was a humble chef, farmed with butter, fire, and memory, who conquered them all, not with war, but with dinner.